Good. Oh, it shows us the results. Thank you. Okay, that's important, right? What are the results? Hamburgers, number 1. Strawberry shortcake, that was me. Number 2. Next would be hot dogs and then potato salad. Okay, so we see how the system works. That was just to get us familiar with that. I love that somebody wanted a picture of that. Yes, hamburgers won. That's it. Okay, so now what we want to know is a little bit about the people who are here. This one, take a little time, make sure we hit where you are. Do you reside in Ormond Beach beachside within the city limits? Are you in Ormond Beach mainland, east of I-95? Are you in Ormond Beach mainland, west of I-95? Or do you live somewhere outside the city limits of Ormond Beach? All right, take your time, put your responses in. All right, we're back up to our 97. And I do just want to mention, if anybody comes in, there are still plenty more places if somebody wants to come in and come up towards the front if anybody else comes in. Okay, let's see those results. The drum roll. Do you feel? There we go. Wow. Okay, so clearly more than, a huge number of our participants. Clearly number 1 is Ormond Beach mainland, east of I-95. Okay? Second you see was outside the city limits, kind of tied right in there with Ormond Beach mainland, west of 95. And not too many people from the beach side within the city. Okay? Probably not a surprise to anybody there. All right, next question. How long have you had a connection to Ormond Beach? Now we say connection because maybe you come here for part of the year, maybe you're here all the year. You can define what connection is. Have you had a connection to Ormond Beach for 5 years or less, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 to 20, or more than 20 years? All right. Let's take we got one more on that. We got 98. Okay, let's see what that shows. Wow. Okay, pretty impressive. Number 1 by far is people that have more than 20 years connection to this community. All right, so sometimes we say the greatest generation. I might argue that sometimes those of us that have long-time connections, we're pretty engaged, right? That's great, great for our community that we have people so engaged. Okay, next question. What is your age? Now again, I know, ladies, this is anonymous. Don't let anybody see what number you click. You got a 10 up there? Somebody wanted number 10. Okay, no, we're not putting number 10 up there. You can hide your clicker. Nobody needs to see your response. Oh, wait, we got more people answering this than anything. Okay, right, we have 103 responses on this one. All right, let's see. What are the results? 104 people. You guys are proud of your age. All right, so number 1 is that 65 to 75. Number 2 is over 75. We're somewhat tied with the groups from between 25 and 54. And then we don't have very many of the young adults here. Okay? Oh, I said that. No, I think we were really the 35 to 64 was the 2 that were pretty closely tied. There we go. Okay, next slide. How long has the airport been in this community? Now, this is not one to lean over and whisper to your table mate. We want you to guess. How long do you think the airport has been in this community? 15 years, 23, 45, 79, or 95? Those are some very specific numbers, right? What do you think is the right answer? Little information about the airport. I was talking to someone earlier who'd lived here their entire life, and they were in their 80s, so maybe they know that answer. All right. All right, got a few eking in. Okay, let's see those results. See how many of you got this one right. The was 79 years. I'm going to ask our airport director. What's the right answer? 79 it is. All right. Kudos to those of you who, so many of you knew that. That is outstanding. The next guess was 45. Okay. All right. And we have one more question for you related to the airport. Go ahead. What is the Civil Air Patrol? Is the Civil Air Patrol the police of the skies, an auxiliary of the U.S. Air Force, a fraternal order, or all of the above? Which do you think? Oh, we don't need to, don't tell your friends. I hear some of y'all thinking maybe it's 1, 2, 3, or 4. All right, that one takes a little more work. Gotta let those answers come in. Okay, let's see what's the right answer on this one. Okay, so we had almost close to a tie, right? A good number of people said all of the above, and number 2, auxiliary of the U.S. Air Force. Mr. Airport Director, what's the right answer? Number 2. Yes, those of you who said nailed it. Okay. We just thought that would be fun to kind of see a little bit about what we knew about the background of the airport. Okay, so we will come, actually we don't use the clickers later, but we're going to ask for your input on another thing later on towards the end. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. One more question. This is another one that I don't think many of us would know. How many acres do you think there are on airport property? Think of everything that's on airport property. How many acres do you think it might be? 235, 642, 905, or 968? That's a lot of acres. All of those are big numbers to me. That's a lot of acres, right? If you're like me, you might be just taking a guess at this one. You can change your mind if you want. Okay, we're holding at 83. Let's see the results and see what you thought. Oh, got to go back. Will it let us? Oh, we can't go back. Let's just ask this question. What was the right answer? Number 4. It is 968 acres. It's a lot of land. Okay. All right. So we're going to move on now, and let me tell you a little bit about what we have coming up. You have this in your agenda as well. We're going to start with some history and operations. And so we're going to learn a little bit about the airport. And so the 2 people that we have here that can answer questions and also talk about this, we have Brian Rademacher. He's the Economic Development Director with the City of Ormond Beach. He is also responsible for a number of different areas, but it includes overseeing the Ormond Beach Airport. He has 10 years of experience in economic development, having held numerous positions with regional, state, and private positions. He is a certified economic developer. That's a designation that's earned through the International Economic Development Council. He's lived in Ormond Beach for 3 years, and when he's not at work, he enjoys spending time out and about in Ormond Beach with his wife and 2 children. We're also delighted to have here tonight Stephen Licklider. He is our airport manager. He is a resident of Ormond Beach for more than 26 years, and his aviation-related activities in the local community make him a familiar face at the Ormond Beach Airport. That was long before he officially became the airport manager in 2008. He came to the city government from a corporate career in information systems management, and he is a practiced navigator of federal and state regulatory systems related to internal controls, control processes, risk assessments, and compliance. A public policy graduate of the School of Public Affairs at the Pennsylvania State University, Mr. Licklider also holds advanced FEMA certifications in emergency management, and he lives here in Ormond Beach with his wife, Kathy. So thank you both for being here. We're going to start off. Brian, tell us a little bit about airport operations.
We want to make sure that we have one more housekeeping item where everybody knows where the restrooms are.
Important. Thank you.
So if you need to use the restroom, you'll go right through this opening right here. They're on the hallway in the back, men's and women's both. Okay, there's also a water fountain up there too.
And this is Robert. You're going to hear from him later on. He does our leisure services, so many of you may know him already. All right, let me turn it over to Brian to talk a little bit about airport operations.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me Hello, hello, testing. All right. I'm going to stand here for fear of interfering with that microphone. If you need to, there are two screens off on the side. So I'm going to talk to you about the history of the airport and then talk about current day operations at this point in the presentation. So a little bit about the history of our airport. As we said, it is 79 years old. It was established as a naval aviation training facility back in 1943 to train Navy pilots as they were preparing to go to war overseas. The Ormond Airport came online about the same time as other airports in our area. Flagler County and DeLand airports both became part of the war effort in 1942, our airport in 1943, and New Smyrna Beach came online in 1944 for the war effort as well. When the war efforts ceased, the airport was deeded to the city in 1959 by the Federal Aviation Administration with the requirement to...
The analysis to the airport sponsor, when they accept the document and issue the finding of no significant, that FONSI, that document becomes a federal document. It has the federal signature on it, FAA cover on it, and it has the weight of federal law behind it. So that's really it, is just really talking about the fact that they do have a really highly regulated environment. In addition to the NEPA process, you have all of the same other permitting processes that you have for other projects. You have to meet all of the state requirements when it comes to the water management district for water quality, all of the state environmental resource permit requirements, and any local permitting requirements as well. So not only the federal, but the state and the local. So when you look at the facilities in the community, the airport goes through the most exhaustive process when it comes to implementing a project relative to virtually any other facility that you would look at. And with that, I will turn it back over.
So when I was first hearing them talk about this, it's okay? Good. Okay. We were first talking about this, and we talked about the fonds. I did not understand when they talked about a Fonzie, because I am dating myself, but that is not who I thought of when they said Fonzie, right? Okay, some of you all may be too young to find that one, but one of the things that I thought was really interesting was when they said, no, it's not the Fonz, it is a Fonzie, finding of no significant impact, when it came to that study that he was telling us about on the extension. So my new vocabulary word for the day is Fonzie, right? All right. So what we're going to do now is we have Stefan Sibley, who is with our leisure services. He's not only a great guy. The last time we did one of these, people came up and two people said, he taught my kids in some of the athletic groups. So you may recognize him if he ever taught your kids or grandkids. But he's going to walk around to each table and pull out one question. Now, just in case you didn't hear at the beginning, every question in the bowl is going to be answered. It's going to be answered online. Those that we don't say tonight, even the ones we do say tonight, will also be answered, so that everybody gets to have their question answered. We are so excited to have such a good crowd, but it'll limit us to one question per table, so he's just going to reach in and grab one out. So.
Absolutely. If everybody be patient with me, I am not the smallest person in the room, so therefore getting through these tables is going to be a little bit complicated. So what I'm going to have Sarah do is she's going to run table by table, and we're going to grab, and then we're going to take them out, and then we have another session. So, okay, first question to our panel. How does Ormond Beach Airport help with growth of space supply chain?
Okay, who gets to answer that one?
How does Ormond Beach Airport help with growth of the space supply chain?
I'll take a crack at that question. It supports that growth right now in Central Florida as a result of Cecil Spaceport being up near Jacksonville and Port Canaveral being down south in Brevard County. We are, of course, seeing a renewed interest in space exploration as well as other developments in aerospace manufacturing. And there's a lot of attraction to this region, and as such, a lot of companies within that supply chain are looking to be near those areas, but they don't necessarily need to be located directly next. So in a lot of instances, they'll be looking for aviation facilities or business parks that are near aviation facilities like the Ormond Airport. And our airport, given its current operations and the Airport Business Park, Ormond Crossings, and other developments nearby, make it a good opportunity for those companies that are looking for locations to select Ormond Beach. And that's a benefit to the city as well as to the region because aerospace industry creates high-quality, high-paying jobs, which of course is one of our strategic goals in creating more high-quality, high-wage jobs in the city of Ormond Beach.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Go ahead.
Okay. How many homes within the FAA 2.5-mile airport hazard area?
Who knows that answer? Read it one more time, Stefan.
How many homes within the FAA 2.5-mile airport hazard area?
So it's asking how many homes are within 2.5 miles of the airport in general? Is that the question?
I guess we would have to do the research on that one and get back to you. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, let's do this. We're going to get the actual facts for that, and we'll make sure we have it online. And you guys can let us know if they don't match what you know. How's that? Good. Okay, next question.
Okay, Ormond Beach extending the runway. How many more fire suppression aircraft can use OMN? Oh, Ormond, that is Ormond Airport call, isn't it? And Flagler.
Okay, read it again.
By extending the runway, how many more fire suppression aircraft can use Ormond, Flagler? Will Cat C aircraft be allowed? So I think that's a two-part question. Sorry, guys, I do not know the acronyms. I apologize.
I can try, yeah.
Just put it up close.
Can you guys hear me okay? Fire suppression aircraft during my tenure at the airport have never been there. We certainly are available if there was an event that required support. We certainly would be available to provide that support. When you say Cat 3, that's a weather designation, doesn't refer to a type of aircraft, if that answers your question.
C, category C, I think he was saying.
C.
Category C.
The schedule.
Yeah, no, we're talking about aircraft in the B2 category only. That's the limit of the airport.
So let me make sure. So if the airport runway was extended, Category C aircraft still could not land there. Is that
The
correct?
runway project remains a B2 category, so it will not change the current airport reference code of the airport, which is what that is.
Okay.
Okay, so just a clarification. When they showed you all the pictures of the different airplanes, the B2 was the designation, so it was only those aircraft they showed. So the question always is, does that mean a 747 can land at our airport? With the runway extended, the answer is no. Even as it is now, and if it's extended, the answer is no, right? Let me make sure I said that correctly. Okay, I was thinking that's where we were going. Okay, and what we want to do is and actually put that question in because we may come to that one too. Good, go ahead.
Okay, next question. How long are the leases for the sports complex and golf course?
The golf course leases was a 100-year lease, I believe, but it's since been terminated. There is not a lease agreement for the sports complex. It is an internal agreement with the city because it's city property, but it is leased at the same rate that the golf course was leased at, but it does not have a specific term.
Okay. So, all right. And guys, I know we may have some add-on questions. Please do feel free to write those down because we will answer every one of those questions. Yes, sir.
Okay, next. What has been the economic impact to the local communities of having an airport that can support local business?
If you're patient, I'll answer that in the next round of slides.
We are going to come and talk about economic development in the second part. So if that question doesn't get answered, we will answer it online. But if it doesn't get answered, put it back into the bowl. I think it will get answered. Okay, next question.
Do planes land with no one manning the tower?
Yes, the control tower is open currently from 7 a.m. in the morning until 7 p.m. in the evening. When the tower is closed, aircraft communicate with each other on the same frequency and coordinate their operations. That's actually one of the things that private pilots learn very early, how to operate without a control tower. As you may recall from the presentation, it's a minority of airports that have control towers, so a lot of fields operate without control towers, and they operate very, very well because pilots are trained for that specific scenario.
Okay, next question.
Okay. Is it true that the extension will require clear cutting of wooded land? Why is this not considered a significant environmental impact?
Doug, that sounds like a Doug question. I don't know.
Well, there will be trees that will be clear cut on the airport property as a result of the project, and I believe it is considered is part of the environmental assessment as well as the capital project planning and design process.
Did we answer that?
Yeah, the main focus of the EA would be on any endangered species that would be located within those trees. So there would be an evaluation done as part of the environmental process that would look at threatened and endangered species, and that would be addressed as part of the NEPA process. You'd also look at wetlands and the potential effect on wetlands if some of those wetlands were wooded, and have to address that, mitigate that as well as part of the development if that situation existed.
So Doug, just to clarify, so was that done in that first analysis for the runway, that process you just talked about?
Yeah, so just to be clear, we didn't conduct the analysis or the planning for this. We're providing kind of a third-party professional opinion on what we're reading here, but I do want to...
That's required as part of the process. Though.
Yes, that's required as part of the process. Yeah.
Good, okay.
Okay, I think this was touched on earlier, but how many passengers can fit on the largest jet that can land at the Ormond Beach Airport?
Yeah, it was actually in Brian's slides, but the B-2 jets that you're referring to was 6 to 8 passengers.
Okay, next question.
Sorry, I have to read through this first. Green arrow off runway 27 should bypass Bear Creek. Can they be required? Okay, let's try it one more time. Green arrow off runway 27 should bypass Bear Creek. Can they be required to not overfly Bear Creek community?
The city actually has no control over air traffic. That's entirely the province of the FAA. The straight-out departure from runway 9 does not overfly Bear Creek, but we do know that sometimes flight training aircraft is over Bear Creek.
So we definitely have some folks who would tell us they hear those airplanes. Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Okay, Stefan, next question.
Okay, next question. If everyone is against the extension, why is it an issue?
Brian, I think we're going to throw that hard one at you.
Well, I don't know if everyone is opposed to the runway extension, but I think as it was stated in the presentation, the project represents within the airport master plan is one of the projects to help the airport fulfill its role as a public use facility for the national airspace system.
Okay. Okay, next question.
Okay, your claim is there is for safety, that this is for safety, yet the FAA said there has not been any crashes or safety problems related to the current runway lengths. So what is the true reason for the runway extension project?
Okay.
Well, overarching, I believe the focus purpose of it is for to enhance the safety, the capacity, and efficiency of the airport. But perhaps Doug or Mike can handle that one.
Well, and really improve the utility especially on those hot days, as I indicated. Aircraft performance is affected by the temperature on weather conditions, and on hot days, it provides additional runway length that's required for aircraft to take off under those conditions and be able to operate from the airport reliably.
Okay.
Okay.
Next question.
What type and quantity of jobs will this produce in Ormond Beach?
Will the runway extension produce? I'm assuming that's what
I'm
the
assuming
"it"
that
means.
was the context, yes.
Well, in terms of the short-term impacts, it would be the construction jobs that are related to the project itself. And then, as we'll discuss in the next series of slides when it comes to economic impact, in terms of the direct jobs that are created on the airport by the business tenants that are there, as well as the indirect impacts. But I don't want to give away my next couple of slides because they're pretty cool.
He will be talking about that further. Good. Okay.
Why is another environmental study needed if the first one found significant impact? Taxpayer money not being used efficiently.
So just a comment. The first one found no significant impact. You said significant. It found no significant, just to clarify. That's what the N and the FONSI was, right? So why are we doing a second study if the first one found no significant impacts?
Oh,
It's a different project. The RP pulled back on the airport, areas, so the FAA wants to make sure that that decision that they made in 2018 holds true for the revised project.
So let me clarify. That wasn't a city decision, Brian, to do that. That was an FAA requirement?
that is correct. It was an FAA decision.
Okay, next question.
What factors make up what is looked at in making a FONSI determination?
A lot. So they look at the purpose and need for the project. What is the need for the particular project? They look at various alternatives. How can the need be accommodated through those alternatives? Then they look at a variety of different environmental resource categories. As I indicated, 15 different categories are evaluated. Air quality, water quality, noise, virtually endangered species, wetland impacts, virtually anything that you can identify that you'd be potentially concerned about is addressed in some way. Environmental justice, children's health and safety. I mean, there's a wide range of different topics that are addressed.
Good.
Okay.
Next question.
How does this benefit the citizens? I'm assuming the runway extension.
The runway extension is designed to address the needs that the airport serves in terms of the flying public. The purpose of the master plan, or one of the purposes of the master plan, the product of the master plan that's perhaps the most important, is the capital improvement plan for the airport, or the CIP. And it is based upon the needs of the users of the airport. The benefits to the community, which Brian's going to get into a little bit, are largely economic, and they're ancillary to the function of the airport. Maintaining the airport is just like maintaining a road or a bridge. It's something that we do as part of our obligation to maintain an important public transportation system. The economic benefits to the community, to the people who don't use the airport, who are not pilots, are ancillary to that, but they're quite significant. And Brian will talk about those in greater detail later.
Yep. And just for those of you who said, why didn't we do everything before we ask questions? Because we wanted to get some questions asked early on. So it's that we were listening to you all. But we will have more questions available after the economic development presentation and the finance. Yes.
Okay, so why does the airport fund continue to stale, I believe is the word written? Stall.
Stall. Okay.
If you have patience as well, we will be answering that in the next round of slides.
Okay.
And if the answer was not, if it wasn't answered in those slides, we'll be happy to answer that at the time.
There's also a quote on here: execute an amended and restated lease agreement between the city and the Riverbend Golf Course. That was just a quote on there.
Okay.
Why was 1,700 foot as RP2 on the 2004 master plan when now there are only, or RPZ, excuse me, I apologize, on the 2004 master plan when now they are only keeping the 1,000 foot RPZ, when your C is showing 4+ C2 aircraft on table 7, additional operations with runway extension, same consultant, 2004 and current. Lee.
Okay, and please explain that question for
Yeah,
those of
I'm
us who
sorry.
didn't quite get that.
If I understand that correctly, the question is referring to the older master plan from 2004. There was, I believe, this is before my time, but I believe that master plan contemplated the airport at one point developing and becoming a C2 airport, but that has been revised, and the current master plan identifies the airport as a B2 airport. So that's probably where that's coming from. That master plan is no longer valid. We're a B2 airport under the current and foreseeable future. We're not going anywhere further.
Thank you, good. Next question.
Okay. What is the noise level of an AC 17Z or 2 versus a Citation AT 1 mile or at 1 mile from the airport? What is the noise level of a C-17?
Sorry, I can't tell you. That's very difficult. I mean, every aircraft has a different both arrival and departure noise profile, so depending on where you are, that noise is gonna vary. So.
Answers on the back.
Oh, the answer's on the back. Okay, so we have the answer on the back. All right. So we've gone to every table. We've grabbed all the fishbowl questions out of each table. We've answered every one. Now all of them. We'll move on to the next thing, and then we have another round. Okay.
Now, for those of you who said, but my question I would like to have answered, it is going to be answered. It's going to be answered online. Was there anything in the bowl? Okay, they thought their question did not get in. They didn't have a question answered. I don't know which one of your questions were answered, but ideally, we did
Are there questions left in any fishbowl?
Are there any questions left in a fishbowl?
Okay.
We have one more over here we didn't get.
Okay.
Now, if we've added more questions since the question started, we're going to come back and do another round of questions, so just hold those. All right, we have one more.
What economic impact does Bear Creek have on Ormond Beach versus Ormond Beach Airport?
Well, they both have an economic impact on the community, and they're both important. Obviously, within a residential development, you have the economic impact of the spending of those residents on the community, both through their homes that they own and the leases that they pay, as well as the money that they spend throughout the community, the jobs that they hold in Ormond Beach or throughout the region. So I think they're both equally important when it comes to the economic impact for the city.
All right, we are going to come back with more questions. We were just talking about money. That leads us really to our next speaker. We always think that the finance part is important. And so I do want to introduce our next speaker. Her name is Kelly Mcguire. She is the finance director for the city of Ormond Beach. She has served as the city's finance director for the past 14 years and has over 30 years experience working in the field of local government finance. Kelly was one of the first financial professionals to receive the Government Finance Officers Association designation as a certified government financial officer. When she's not at work, Kelly likes writing, reading, and traveling, sometimes by air.
And puppies.
And puppies.
Always puppies.
Okay, you got to have the puppies.
Yes.
All right,
Do you have
Kelly.
the clicker?
It
It is right here. Thank you. Perfect. Okay. So I'm just going to talk. Apparently, it's very temperamental. Okay, we passed that and that. And here we are. I'm going to talk just briefly about, just about the financials of the airport. I think the most important thing to know is that the airport fund is a separate financial entity, right? So the city has 34 different funds. Every single one of those funds has its own budget, has its own audit, has its own financial statement, and most importantly, is responsible for generating revenue for that fund. So the airport fund isn't paid for out of your general property taxes. The airport fund is paid for out of the leases on the land. And those leases come from leasing of the hangars, leasing of the golf course when it was leased, and it will be again, and then the sports complex. So with respect to the sports complex, that property is actually leased by the airport to the city's general fund so that we can use it for recreation purposes. So that lease revenue, in turn, is used to fund the general day-to-day operations of the airport. So we're talking about salary, benefits, maintenance, and utilities, right? All the day-to-day types of things. In addition to the lease revenue, the airport fund gets grant revenue. We get grant revenue from the FAA and from the FDOT. In order to receive that grant revenue, however, we have to provide a local match. And when I say we, I mean the airport fund. Typically, that local match is between 2 and 20% of whatever the grant funds are that we'll receive. And those grant funds then are used for capital projects like the runway rehab and the equipment replacement. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about that local match, because what happens is if there is lease revenue available after the day-to-day costs are paid, then that lease revenue will be used to provide that local match of 2 to 20%. However, that's not always the case, right? That lease revenue is not always available. Okay. So what has happened over the course of the last 10 years when that lease revenue has not been available to provide that local match is the airport fund has gone out and borrowed that money. The airport fund has borrowed that money from the city's general fund. And those internal loans are something we do not only with the airport fund, we've done them with the solid waste fund, we've done them with our grants fund. So that's a typical thing that cities do. The reason we do internal borrowing as opposed to going out and borrowing it from the bank is, first of all, it's less expensive because there's no closing costs. So what happens is the airport fund will borrow money to provide its match for grants. Every year, the airport fund will pay back whatever it has available to pay back, and it will always pay the general fund a specified interest. That interest amount is set to make sure that the general fund is always kept whole. So if the general fund could take those dollars and invest them in the bank and earn 8%, but they're borrowing them to the airport fund, then the airport fund has to pay the general fund that 8% interest rate. So we keep the general fund whole at all times. Now, the reason that this financing, this internal financing is an important tool is because for every dollar of local match provided by the airport fund, $22 of grant funding is received through the FAA or FDOT. And most importantly, that then in turn turns into $750 in economic benefit to our region. So for $1 of investment, we get $750 of economic benefit. That means for $668,000 of investment, which has occurred over the last 10 years, we've gotten average approximately $50 million of economic benefit per year. So you may be asking yourself, well, what are we talking about when we say economic benefit? Who's getting that benefit? What specifically are those benefits? And then I'm going to turn it back to Brian. He's going to discuss just that.
I'm using the microphone. All right. Just this? Oh, which is it? I'm using the mic. All right. Here I am. So to discuss economic development and the impact, which did come up, and we had some early questions on that. Airports do provide an economic impact to the state of Florida, to the Florida economy. And the Ormond Beach Airport is no exception. When we talk about economic impact, there are 3 direct impacts that the airport has on the community. The first impact is aviation services. This is the provision of aviation services by the businesses on the airport in the aviation community, as well as the jobs and the wages that these businesses support. The second direct impact of an airport on a community is the capital investment that is made by those businesses in their hangars, as well as the equipment that they use for their businesses. The capital investment also involves the capital improvement projects that the city makes on the airport, again, as part of its public use airport system. And the third direct impact is the spending that occurs from the businesses and the visitors that fly into and through the airport. These indirect impacts trigger indirect impacts. Specifically, the purchase of goods and services. So the businesses that are on the airport are using other businesses in Florida, in the county, in the region, to buy goods and services, which begets additional jobs and revenue for those businesses that need to fulfill those orders. It is also in other industries like retail, restaurant, lodging, etc., based on the business and visitor spending that's occurring from those coming into and through the airport. Another indirect impact are the employee spending that occurs by those employed at the airport and those employed in those related industries that are supplying services to the businesses. Those employees spend their wages on housing, education, healthcare, entertainment, groceries, which of course continues to not only encourage the flow of money circulating throughout the economy, but when you have that supply and demand, it creates additional jobs. So the impact of the direct jobs, or the direct impacts and the indirect impacts, creates what has been identified in the Florida Department of Transportation's Aviation Economic Impact Study, a total regional employment impact of 426 jobs across a plethora of different industries with an associated payroll of $18 million and a total regional output of $56 million. And again, that's associated with all of the industries that are impacted through the region and the state's economy as well as our local economy. So I think it goes to show through this study that there is an economic impact to having an airport in the community. The other impact are the airport businesses. Let's get a little bit more specific here. I think it's a benefit to any community to have businesses in your community. I think we would all agree to that. And those on the airport are, again, also no exception. Again, we have 19 businesses on the airport that employ 90 people, and they're involved in providing flight training, aviation maintenance, they're doing some light assembly and manufacturing, and they're also flight sales or aircraft sales and other business services on the airport. Another economic impact and contribution to the community is the Airport Business Park. The Airport Business Park started to come into formation in the 1980s, and now currently we have 48 businesses that are in the Airport Business Park. Some of you who might have businesses in there are here, and that are in a variety of different industries, are targeted industries that create high-wage, high-skilled jobs in manufacturing and professional services and technical and professional services. Over 1,000 jobs. And when we looked at the property appraisers' roles, we saw that the commercial and industrial property in there creates a property value of over $57 million and collected over $812,000 in property taxes in 2021. So if not, because of the airport's land, it made this employment center a possibility for our community. And if you haven't been in there, I highly encourage it because there are some amazing companies doing some great things in there. Another benefit to the community, or to Ormond Beach and to the overall community, is the Civil Air Patrol, which is an auxiliary, as we learned, of the U.S. Air Force. It's been operating out of our airport for over 50 years, and they have a primary mission of providing emergency services. They do aerospace education, which, as we now know, is more important than ever for our youth. And they also have cadet programs for young men and women that are in the military. A little known fact about the CAP program here at Ormond Beach is that they were instrumental in capturing aerial photography of the damage done to Ormond Beach as a result of Hurricane Matthew. Another benefit to the community is Parks and Recreation, and to that I'll ask Robert Carolyn, our Director of Leisure Services, to come up here.
As Robert comes up, I'm going to give you that good fitting introduction the rest of them got, right? He has to get a little bit about him. Robert has served as the city's Director of Leisure Services for the City of Ormond Beach for the past 14 years, and he has over 31 years' experience working in the field of leisure services. Robert will be the first to tell anyone that Ormond Beach is an amazing place to live, work, and play. When he's not at work, you're going to find Robert spending time with his sons fishing, hiking, and surfing. As he's coming up to speak, a couple quick things I wanted to remind you all. I've seen some people also wanting to get pictures of some of these slides. All of the slides you see tonight will be posted on the city's website. So if something went by you too quickly or you didn't get it, it will be available there. I did want to mention, we've gotten some word that some of the streaming, the online streaming technology never quite works with us. The internet doesn't always work as well as we'd like. Seems to be coming in and out. So I do want to mention that we're going to leave the questions to come into the city open for another 48 hours so that the people who didn't get a chance to submit them during the conversation can send them into that same city email address and be able to share those questions. So if you have friends who were not here and they said, hey, I have a question that I'd like to see answered, they may also email those to the city. Before we leave tonight, I'll go over that email address one more time. So I just wanted to mention, we wanted to be sure we got a chance to hear everybody's questions. Those not answered here in person tonight, or if somebody's question makes you think of another question, please put them in the fishbowl. We will collect all of those up. They will all be answered. All right, Robert.
All right, well, I don't get an opportunity to speak to a lot of you, especially this many people in a room very often, so I'm very grateful that all of you came out tonight. And I'm sure you didn't come out to learn a little bit about Parks and Recreation. You're probably trying to figure out, well, how does that fit in this environment that we're talking about? Well, what I wanted to do, well, I was hoping I'd be able to do anyway, is sort of explain to you the lease agreement that were mentioned earlier with the sports complex. So I'm going to start there, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about some other areas that we use that is airport property as well. But because, let's see here, let me get this to go to the next slide. There we go. Oh, I'm always one step ahead. It's a little slow. Let's see if it goes back. I don't know. There we go. It's probably going to jump. All right. So anyway, we're able to utilize approximately 113 acres of airport property. And what we have done here in Ormond Beach is create one of the largest sports complexes in Volusia County. Now, this equates to approximately 24 youth athletic fields, and that can range anywhere from t-ball to soccer, football, and so forth. We have 6 concession stands, and these concession stands are very important to this community because they're run and managed by our youth sports associations. And what the dollars that they make out of those concession stands, that goes back to keeping the youth sports programs at a lower cost and offsetting some of those expenses. So that's really important. And then we also have 7 restroom facilities. So you don't have to go too far. A lot of areas you may visit, you have to walk all the way across to go to a restroom. But we're pretty fortunate here at this sports complex. And then one relatively new field house that we use for just a lot of different venues. Now, our relatively large, 113 acres, but it also, with the tournaments that go on there, generates an economic impact of $1.5+ million every single year. And I'm going the wrong way again. All right, here we go. So interesting, estimated annual participation, and it equates to right at 70,000. And that can range from anywhere from little teeny ones, young children, all the way up to our seniors. And this clicker does not like me. Okay. We have approximately 19 active organizations that utilize our sports complex. And you can see a lot of them are our local school systems, as well as our organizations for our youth sports complex, our youth in our community. Now, outside of youth sports, we also are a home at the sports complex for 2 playgrounds, a shuffleboard complex, and a small little nature park or mini park called Optimist Park with grills, picnic tables, horseshoes, and then we also do some community events there. I've picked a couple of things I want to showcase. If you haven't been to the sports complex and you haven't actually had an opportunity to see this, this is the relatively new, I think 9 years plus, Limitless Playground. It is now being called and was dedicated not too long ago. It's the Ferrito Family Limitless Playground. And it is especially designed to be able to serve the needs of all children with all abilities. So it's a really unique playground. We've received multiple awards. It's actually been showcased in some magazines. It has a really cool pavilion with a grill, and it's probably the go-to place if you're having a small children's birthday party or just a small family gathering. And then I had mentioned, if this picks up, I'd mentioned that we do some community events. This is one of our community events. We were all relatively challenged to try to offer services during the COVID-19. So the first year, we were all scurrying around trying to figure out what we could do to sort of bring back some normalcy back to our community as we were all sort of tied into our homes. And so we came up with this Halloween highway, and it was really one of our first overall community events at the sports complex. Extremely popular, and so now we do that every year. But what this has given us an opportunity for over 29 businesses locally came out. They put together some really cool, scary displays. And then we very carefully managed the flow of traffic throughout the evening. And we actually had over 500 to, I think, probably 1,000, but over 500 plus cars come through filled with children. It was a really great event, and it will be again this year as well. So outside of the sports complex, we have a small park called Riverbend, and it abuts the Tomoka River. And it has playgrounds as well, picnic tables, pavilions, restroom facilities, very important, fishing piers. It has some really nice canoe and kayak launches. And then what's really cool is we just completed the mountain bike trail, which is about a 1.5 plus miles of mountain bike trail that meanders throughout the park. So, and it was all done by volunteers, which was really nice, local people within our community. So these are some of the amenities that if it wasn't for our city having this airport, we may not be able to have here in Ormond Beach. So I'm here to deliver a little bit of good, positive news to you. And with that, I think, and then that's some pictures of our mountain bike trail. And I think I'm done. I am done. We're going to push. The noise, huh?
The residents here are concerned about the noise of this airport.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we would like everyone's question to be answered. So if you have a question, please do write it down. We will answer your question. We do know there's a lot, when we talk about things that are important to us, there's a lot of emotion. We know that, and we respect that. So, okay, so we're going to continue on. I do want to mention one other quick thing in case I led you astray. We are videotaping this meeting. So this meeting will be available to everyone online. So again, if people had trouble accessing it live on the internet, they can watch the meeting. We're now going to do one more set. I know you all have been very patient. If you're interested, we'd like to do one more set of polling questions and doing answers. The last thing we're going to do is have you talk at your tables to talk about what's the most important thing to you, because that's your chance to be sure we hear what's important to you. All right, Stefan.
Okay,
she's
Sarah's
grabbing
going to the
questions.
table.
Good.
She's going to bring me the questions.
Okay. Please, if you have questions, put them down, and we understand some people do not want the extension. We understand some people do. We are trying to be sure in this meeting that we're listening to the voices of everyone, not just the person who's the loudest. So please do write down your question, and we will answer it online or in person here. All right,
Okay,
first question.
What is the need for another small airport when you already have the Daytona Beach and Flagler airports?
Okay.
Well, that's a good question. There are a lot of airports in Florida, as we learned earlier, and the reason for that is because Florida has great weather. That's why I think the military built all the fields down here for training. That's why the space program's here. Airports, as we mentioned, are part of the national airspace system. And the way I look at that, I reflect on my time interacting with my colleagues at other airports and participating in statewide plans. Like I was part of the team that participated in the statewide master plan for the statewide aviation system. So people like me and my colleagues at other airports, we frequently work together to determine what the needs of the system are and how we can improve them and make them better. I look at airports as being part of a larger team, the National Airspace System. Airports really don't compete with each other, they support each other. One of the reasons why we have general aviation airports is to provide service to smaller aircraft, privately owned aircraft, business aircraft, so that those aircraft don't also have to use the larger commercial facilities that are trying to service commercial scheduled carriers. Imagine what it would be like if you had to fly out of Daytona Beach and you had a connecting flight in Atlanta, as we always do, but you were sitting behind 25 Cessna 172s waiting to take off to do flight training, or waiting behind a business aircraft, that kind of thing. That's just one example. But that's why there are general aviation airports, and that's why there's a need for so many airports in a system as grand as the one in our country. That's why it is.
Thank you. All right, Stefan.
Okay, so there's quite a few questions on this one card, so I'm going to...
You get the first one at the top.
I'll read the first one. What are the 15 aspects of the federal Fonzie investigations?
Ooh, okay, we're going to test you, Doug, see if you know the 15 aspects of the Fonzie. I don't know that he'll know them all off the cuff, but we'll see.
We have
Hang on, Doug.
yeah, and this is Mike.
Okay, try that again.
Yeah.
See if we, there we go.
So if you want to look up in National Environmental Policy Act online, it will outline the different categories that are.
We lost you again, Doug.
Sorry, Mike, go ahead. Try it again, one more time.
I think I'm going to try to swap you out.
Okay, let's get him a new mic, so make sure everybody hears that answer.
Check, check.
All right, try again.
Yeah, I was just saying I don't have them right in front of me, but you can look up National Environmental Policy Act online, and you'll see the listing of the different categories that are affected there. So it used to be 20 or 21 categories. They've consolidated some of them, and that's why I just can't remember exactly how that consolidation took place. But it is, every federal agency for federal decisions has to go through a similar process. The FAA isn't the only entity that is required to have its actions go through this process. Any of the other federal agencies also have to go through this process. So.
Okay, thank you. Stefan.
How can you justify that jets are quiet due to the increase in runway length?
Mike, you want to get that one too?
I don't think we tried to justify that jets are quiet. Jets are noisier aircraft typically than the single-engine piston aircraft operating at the airport. But there are very few of them operating at the airport, and it's projected that there would be very few of them operating with the extension.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Stefan.
Was Bear Creek property on airport property part of the 900 acres? Developed on airport property? Question mark. Two-part question there.
No. It was not part of the original airport property.
Okay. All right, next question.
If the trend for airport use is going down, why spend the money?
Okay.
Again, the objective is to fulfill the obligation of the airport as the airport sponsor to make capital improvements to the airport in order to support the class of aircraft that currently use it and will be using it in the future.
Okay, Stefan.
Several planes flying over in the morning and very noisy. It has increased significantly and still gives some consumers, or same, I apologize. I'm sorry? Okay, why are they flying over our community? I'll get right to the question. Why are they flying over our community?
Well, the airport traffic area around the airport is where aircraft are ascending or descending to the airport. As far as why they're flying over the community.
Stephen, put that closer to your mouth. I can't hear you.
Okay, can everybody hear me now? Why they're flying over the community? The simple answer is, decades ago, the airport was built in the northwest quadrant of the city. There was nothing out there, but it is a common occurrence with airports that communities develop around them because they are centers of commerce, because there's available land. If your community was built within the airport traffic area, you're going to have aircraft flying over your community. Down here, it's even more frequent because Florida is the flight training capital of the world. And that's not something we have any control over, but it is the way it is. So the short answer is if you develop a community within an airport traffic area, you're going to have aircraft over your house.
Okay. Stefan, go ahead.
Okay. How will watershed to surrounding homes be dealt with? Also, Gopher Tortoise is very prominent in the area.
So would Gopher Tortoise be one of those things that they look at in the Fonzie? And if so, tell us a little bit about that. And the other one was
how will
Watershed
watershed be to surrounding areas be dealt with? That's the first part of that question.
Yeah, I can't speak specifically to the details of this particular project, but they will have to comply with the South Florida Water Management District or St. John's River Water Management District requirements, which will require, that the discharges and everything meet the state standards. So that would be addressed through that process. Gopher tortoises are one of those species that we often encounter on airports that would have to be relocated potentially if they are in a specific area that was impacted. So if you were, potentially constructing where they are, you conduct a gopher tortoise survey about 90 days prior to construction, and you have to remove those gopher tortoises. You can't do it too early before construction because they may move into the area. So you want to make sure that you get them out of the area just prior to construction. So.
And they're relocated, right?
They are relocated, that's correct. Yep.
Okay. Was the 900 plus acres purchased at one time or bought throughout its 70 years?
The entire airport property was deeded to the city in the 1950s. The other uses that we discussed were done at different times. The airport business park land was released in 1960 and acquired by the city. And as we discussed, the leaseholds to the city and to Riverbend were in the 1980s.
Okay, next question.
What has the airport done to decrease the noise factor? I was told to wear earplugs.
What has the airport done to decrease the noise?
Well, back in 2009, I believe it was, there was a noise abatement task force that as a result of that task force, implemented a series of voluntary noise abatement procedures for aircraft to follow as they are using the airport.
So and I understand the question was also voluntary. Can you mandate those? Is that a requirement that the local government can do?
Yeah, the airport is really limited in what it can do when it comes to controlling aircraft and how they fly. It's, as indicated earlier, that's completely the purview of the Federal Aviation Administration. Airport can work with operators to implement voluntary measures to encourage users to operate their aircraft in a manner that is safe, efficient, and reduces the noise impact on the community. But the only way that you can actually implement mandatory measures is if you have a significant noise effect or impact on non-compatible land uses. And with the type of aircraft you have operating at the airport, your significant levels of noise exposure, as defined by the Federal Aviation Administration, are not going to get off airport property. They're going to remain primarily on airport property when it comes to that. So the only option available to the airport is to work with the users and operators through the types of efforts that Brian described to reduce the effects on the surrounding community. I know that, voluntary is, a lot of people get frustrated with that. I will say, though, that it can be very effective in reducing the impacts on the surrounding communities. The challenge you have oftentimes with flight schools is that you have new students, and so it's a constant educational and continued process. So again, voluntary is really the only option the airport has.
Thank you. Next question.
Okay. Why is the airport property currently in such rundown condition?
Well, I think the sports complex looks amazing, don't you guys? You might be referencing the Riverbend golf course. When it was closed, it was determined I'm sorry? The airport.
Yes.
But Riverbend
Underline
Well, I guess, well, I mean,
airport.
I'll continue with that. I mean, the airport itself is maintained regularly and improved through the capital improvement projects, and then there's annual maintenance that occurs on the airfield itself. I don't know, I mean, I haven't really noticed it looking too degrading.
Airfield maintenance is a matter of priority, too. Grants from the federal government, from the state for airport projects are very competitive, and we have to go with those that are prioritized according to those agencies. For example, improving a runway pavement surface, improving a taxiway pavement surface takes priority over a ramp or parking area. Now, we have been, as you saw, working diligently over the last 10 years to improve the airport. We've got a lot of the runways and taxiways in good shape. Having done that, we'll be able to look at improving the ramp areas, and we have a design project in 23 to look at the rehabilitation of the primary ramp area. But we are obliged to go by the FAA and the FDOT's priority standards in terms of scheduling projects for consideration. Other small projects, new signage at the airport, there are other things that we're doing to try and improve the airport overall, but it's a matter of priority, and we're hamstrung to a certain extent by the funds that are made available to us to do it based on that priority.
Okay, next question.
Our airport is fine the way it is. Why do we need more? We have plenty of noise now.
That sounded like a statement, but
Why do we need more?
why do we need more? We're not necessarily getting more. We're extending the runway. There will be additional development opportunities on the airport as we look to be a part of the aerospace cluster that is growing in our region. I think we want more in terms of that type of development because, again, it creates high-paying, high-skilled jobs in our region.
All right, next question.
Why do people move next to an airport and then complain?
Okay, no, we're going to I don't know that we have an answer to that. I guess Mike is going to help us here.
Yeah, and I would just say it's, the situation's complicated, right? Airports are dynamic, they evolve, and one of the things that we see oftentimes, one of the real challenges we're experiencing right now with the booming Florida housing market is a lot of sight unseen purchases. A lot of community members are moving into areas, purchasing homes in areas where they haven't had the opportunity to observe the conditions, and that has created issues. I don't know if it's creating an issue in this community, but I'm seeing it pop up throughout the state of Florida. It's a real challenge, an unexpected challenge as a result of COVID and the huge population shift we're seeing in the state right now, and just how hot the housing market is. And we see people introduced to areas where they're experiencing things that they didn't anticipate. One of the challenges we have when we deal with airports, operations, and noise is everyone's level of sensitivity to noise varies. Some people may not notice it at all. It's just part of the background environment. Other people are highly sensitive to it and, extremely sensitive to it. Every single flight is like nails on a chalkboard, whereas others don't even hear it, notice it. It's part of the background. So anyway, I know that interesting, that question often, plays things at odds, but, I just wanted to provide some perspective.
All right, we have one more.
Would you consider selling the golf course, all or part? If so, how much? Would you like a new golf course with a university partner?
Well, as I understand it, and perhaps the colleagues can elaborate on this, but the city is not, the FAA is the sole determinator as to whether or not airport land can be released for non-aviation uses in terms of a sale.
Okay. All right.
Okay, and the last one, are you only asking for 600-foot extension, not 1,000?
That is correct. The current project only considers a 600-foot extension to the primary runway.
And can you go ahead and just mention, I mean, do we know what might happen in the future? I mean, we don't know, but what are we thinking?
Correct. So the next airport master plan process will commence in 2024, at which time an analysis will be done in terms of the runway length and additional, if additional extensions are considered, they will be within that plan and available for public comment.
Okay. All right. Okay, folks, two last things, if you can hang with us. What we'd like to do now is ask you at your tables to go around the room. Now, what we'd like around the room, around your table, if you would, start with the person whose birth date is closest to today. All right? That person goes first and provide the answer to this question. And the question is, what is most important to you about the Ormond Beach Airport? We'd love for you to discuss this at your table. We're going to give you 10 minutes. If you go all the way around, you may ask one more time and ask again. All right? So we're going to give you a few minutes. There's also snack foods at the back, but we'd love to have you discuss this at your table. Excuse me, let me also add, when you provide your answer, I would like you to write it on the white paper in the middle of the table. And then we're going to ask you to vote on what's most important to you at the end. So we will collect up those papers if you write your responses on the paper. Each person to discuss what's most important to them about the airport. All right, folks, we're going to give you about 2 more minutes for those who want to stay and share those thoughts. We will collect them. Okay, folks, if I can get everyone's attention for just a moment. Okay, including our speakers up at the front. I knew it'd be hard to bring us back together, but we do want to hear some collective thoughts. So if everybody can grab a seat. Okay, so let me just mention to you guys. Okay, now here comes the loud voice, right? Everyone should have on their paper, on their agenda, something that says word cloud. Okay, if you have that, if you are like me, I'm not always technologically advanced, but all you have to do is get your phone. If you take your phone out, you can just take a picture of that code. It's the one that's on the screen. It's this. It's going to take you to where it asks you the same question about what's most important to you about the Ormond Beach Airport, and you are just going to type in your one-word answer. What it's going to allow us to do is see the comments from everyone in the room, so that if a word is repeated, it's going to get larger on the screen. So if anybody needs help with that, please raise your hand. All you have to do is take your phone, if it has a camera, take a picture of that little code, and it will take you right to where we'll have the little survey. You can put more than one. It will allow you to put more than one. We'd really love for you to put one, just so we know what's most important to you. Just put one if you would. That way we know what's most important. Just to point to, you do not have to push the picture button. All you have to do is point your camera and it will give you a link that takes you there. It's on your handout, or you can do it off the screen, whatever you prefer. If anybody needs help with that, please feel free to raise your hand, and we'll be happy to show you. All right, I'm going to go to this. Now, Jen, if I advance, can they still put their answers in? Okay, so now you see the answers that are coming up from people in the room. Right now, when we ask what is most important, the number one response that has been the largest has been jobs, but we also see property restrictions, extend the runway, extension, economic concerns. So when you put the word in, the more people who put it, the larger it gets. That's why you see the impact of people. If someone said the jet noise and air pollution, that was maybe one or two people because it's a little smaller. Jobs, noise are the two big ones so far. Jobs and noise. So every time it moves means someone else has put in their opinion.
Loving that, aren't you? Jobs.
Okay, we're going to leave that up for a few minutes for people who still would like to put their words in to be included. So let me kind of tell you, where do we go from here? If I can grab everyone's attention one more time. I know we got a lot of conversations going, but I do want to thank you guys. We had about 140 people here tonight. We know this is an important issue on all sides. We are taking that to heart. Please, you can watch this again online. The slides will be there, and every question will be answered. So on behalf of your mayor, your commissioners, your city staff, your airport, and our presenters tonight, thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Have a good evening.